I thought we were alive. We're always alive in Krishna consciousness. So today we're reading, we're reading from text 1 of chapter 5, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva's teachings to his sons. This is a famous verse. If you don't know it, you can cry. So I should know this verse. There are certain crying verses, like if you don't know them, not good. This is one of them. What we have in ISKCON, we have famous verses. And they become famous because Prabhupada quoted them often. That's why they're famous. Yeah.
Is it fifth canto?
Yeah, 551. If Prabhupada quoted them often, then we quoted them often, and that's how they became famous. If there is such thing as a famous verse. How does a verse become famous? It's often quoted, right? And so we should know those famous verses, right? Shouldn't we? Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, text 1. This chapter is entitled Lord Ṛṣabhadeva's teachings to his sons. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ṛṣabha uvacha. It's Ṛṣabha because there's no I after the R, which means it's short. Ṛṣabha. Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke. Kastan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye. Tapo devyam putrakayena sattam. Shudyad yasmad brahmashokam tvanantam. Ṛṣabha uvacha. Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke. Kashtam kaman arhate vidbhujam ye. Tapo divyam putrakayena sattam. Shudyad yasmad brahmashokam tvanantam. Ṛṣabha uvacha. Nayam deho deha bhajan niloke. Kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye. Tapo divyam putakayena sattam. Shudyad yasmad brahmashokam tvanantam.
Ṛṣabha uvacha. Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke. Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke. Kastam kaman arhate vidbhujam ye.
Man arhate vidbhujam ye. Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam. Shudyad yasmad brahmashokam tvanantam. Haribol. Ṛṣabha uvacha.
Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke.
Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke.
Kashtan kaman arhate vibhujamye.
Kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujamye.
Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam.
Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam.
Yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam.
Yajmad brahma shokam tanantam. Anyone else?
Ṛṣabhadeva
Ṛṣabha uvacha.
Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke.
Nayam deho deha bhajam niloke.
Kastam kamam arate vidbhujamye.
Kastam arhate vidbhujamye.
Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam.
Tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam.
Yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam.
Yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam.
So, before we read the word meaning, so we'll explain why I chose this verse. Yesterday, we read the verse by Queen Kunti, where Queen Kunti said, use the word arhati. Arhati means deserves. Let's see how Prabhupada translates it here. Deserves, yeah, he translates it the same way. So, Kunti said something interesting. She said, if one is trying to progress materially, they do not deserve to chant with feeling. Now, normally we would say they can't chant with feeling, right? Isn't it? Like if you're attached, you won't be able to chant. She's saying you don't deserve to. That's more than you can. I was thinking about that, and I thought it's an interesting word to use. You're materially attached. You do not deserve to feel when you pray. Like, what does that mean? Material attachment has disqualified me. So I thought, well, that's an interesting word. Could have just said you can't. So this verse has the same word. I thought, well, let's read this verse and see if we maybe understand why these words are chosen. And maybe there's, meanings hidden that we can uncover. So, word meanings of this verse. Ṛṣabha uvacha. Lord Ṛṣabhadeva said. Ṛṣabhadeva said. Not. I am this. Deha. Body. Deha bhajam. Of all living entities who have accepted material bodies. Niloke. In this world. Kashtan. Troublesome. Kaman. Sense gratification. That means if you accepted a body in this world, you're trying to enjoy sense gratification, it's troublesome. Arhate. Deserves. Vit bhujam. Stool eaters. So you do not deserve to live like a pig, basically. Like, you have a human body, sense gratification is troublesome. You don't deserve, like, you're very intelligent and you got a job collecting trash, and you could be like a NASA scientist and say, you don't deserve this. Like that, kind of like, you don't deserve, you're a human being, you don't deserve to live like a pig. That's the context. Yea, which? Tapaha, austerities and penances. Divyam, divine. Putrakaha, my dear sons. Jena, by which? Sattvam, the heart. That's interesting. Sattvam, sometimes means goodness. Here it means heart. Shudyat becomes purified. Yasmat, from which Brahma Shokyam, spiritual happiness. Two, certainly, Anantam, unending. So you don't deserve to live like a pig. Do tapa, divine, tapa divyam, my dear sons, putraka, by which sattvam shudyat, your heart will become purified, yasmat, from which brahmasokam anantam, you'll have unlimited spiritual happiness. This is a paradox, right? Do austerity and you become happy, do sense gratification and you suffer. That's what this verse is saying. Like, who understands that? Everyone thinks it's the opposite. Right? Lord Ṛṣabhadeva told his sons, my dear boys, of all living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified. And when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. Purport. This is kind of like, you could in a sense say this is one of the main themes of the Hare Krishna movement, isn't it? In this verse, Lord Ṛṣabhadeva tells his sons about the importance of human life. He explains that you should go to a good university and get a degree in IT. No, it doesn't say that. Did you think I was...
Where is that?
Get a good job, earn a lot of money, get married, buy a big house, save your money for retirement, work hard for 40 years, and enjoy life. He did not explain that to his sons. The word dehabak refers, so Shastra says, Guru na sasyat, swajani na sasyat, pita na sasyat. You shouldn't become a father, mother, relative, guru, anything if you can't deliver your children. And all the parents, even the Indian parents, are telling them, don't become brahmachari, don't go to the temple too much, don't get too involved, just stick to your studies. So, no, you're, okay, that's not bad advice, but when it becomes more important than your bhakti, then actually, technically speaking, you're disqualified as a parent. We should honor our parents. My parents tell me to eat meat. Yeah, well, we should respect that they're your parents, but we shouldn't necessarily do what they say if they're not liberated souls themselves. The word dehabhak refers to anyone who accepts a material body, but the living entity, the word dehabhak refers to anyone who accepts a material body, but the living entity who is awarded the human form must act differently from animals. Animals like dogs and hogs enjoy sense gratification by eating stool. After undergoing severe, so you're like, how is stool sense gratification? Well, the pure devotee looks at us and thinks what we're doing is like eating stool, pretty much, right? You remember this pair, Raghunath Das? He was saying, pride, the desire for pride is like bathing in, it's just filthy. It's like bathing in donkey urine. It just stinks. It's abominable, despicable, right? That's how he thinks of it. And how do we think of pride? Like, yeah, it's good, I like it. Say something good about me, it makes me feel good. And he's saying, makes me feel like I'm bathing in donkey urine. So it's just interesting, right? After undergoing severe hardships all day, human beings are trying to enjoy themselves at night by eating, drinking, having sex, and sleeping. At the same time, they have to properly defend themselves. However, this is not human civilization. You know, Prabhupada once said, over-collecting money comes under defense. Over-collecting money is part of defending. Like you have money, you have what you need, you have more than you need, way more than you need. Like, well, what if something happens, you know? This one man in South Africa, he was very wealthy. I think he owned a diamond mine or a gold mine. He had a whole floor in the hospital just for his family. So that's like defending on steroids, you know. It's like, you probably guessed that his family did die at some point, even though they had a floor in the hospital. So there's only so much you can defend. But that's an example of defending, you know. Because we think defending is like bombs or whatever. And there's also defending, you know, when someone says you're stupid, you know who you're talking to, let's go outside, you know, I'll show you who's stupid, you know. So that's also defending. But there's so many varieties of defending. It's interesting. Human life means voluntarily practicing suffering for the advancement of spiritual life. There is, of course, suffering in the lives of animals and plants, which are suffering due to their past misdeeds. However, human beings should voluntarily accept suffering in the form of austerities and penances in order to attain the divine life. Of course, we know, even if you're not looking for austerities, they'll come to you, right? So it's like, better you choose them, you get more benefit than when they come to you. That's how I always thought. It's like if I don't choose it, it's going to come anyway, right? Like winter's going to come, it's going to be cold for everybody, you know. So maybe I could take a cold shower in the summer, do some austerity, get some benefit. So, you know, this word austerity means accepting some sacrifice or difficulty, but tapo divyam, divine austerity, means voluntarily doing something that's good for your spiritual life. You know, like sometimes, I don't know in your country, but in America, it's like we have a shortage of water or a shortage of this, so they say we have to do some austerity. You know, don't use your water during the day, don't water your lawn, you know, something like that. So that's how they use austerity. I think there was a time, I don't know what it was, I don't remember, but they wanted us to do some austerity that nobody wanted to do. You know, I forget what it was. And, you know, it's like some restriction of sense gratification. Americans are really bad at restricting sense gratification because they've never had to. And people were really upset. Like they couldn't do this little austerity. Once myself and some of my godbrothers were at a festival, and it was at a school, and we had a room, and it was just like sleep on the floor, you know. And the organizers were, well, I'm sorry, you know, we don't have a facility, this and that. Are you okay? And you go, yeah, we're brahmacharis. We did this for so many years, like we're used to it, you know. So when you do the austerity, it's good. It builds strength. You can do more austerity. However, human beings should voluntarily accept suffering in the form of austerities and penances in order to attain the divine life. After attaining the divine life, one can enjoy happiness eternally. After all, every living entity is trying to enjoy happiness, but as long as one is encaged in the material body, he has to suffer different kinds of misery. A higher sense is present in the human form. We should act according to superior advice in order to attain eternal happiness and go back to Godhead. So one time I was walking in the forest. In the forest there's just like trees as far as you can see, and grass as far as you can see, and plants as far as you can see, and mosquitoes as far as you can and can't see, and ants as far as you can and can't see, and snakes and rabbits and I'm walking through, and this was like kind of like a dull brain realization. You know, there's like millions of living entities in this forest, and I'm the only human. And I'm taking human life, you know, I'm wasting it, you know, watching Netflix. And, you know, it's like I can't even count how many living entities are here and they can't chant Hare Krishna, and I can, and I'm just like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, just not taking it serious. It doesn't make sense, does it? So today we were walking and I said, look at all these living entities just in a small area. You know, wake up, you're a human being. Like, there's so many living entities and they're not human, and we are. Now, Prabhupada has told us that millions of times. Why did he tell us that so many times? You're sitting in class and the guy, I've heard this so many times. Can't you tell us some leelas, some nectar? Prabhupada's like, we didn't ask him that, but in Prabhupada's mind, he's like, no, you need to hear this, because you're so inclined to sense gratification. You just need to hear this, that you're a human, and you're different, and you should do some austerity. A higher sense is present in the human form. We should act according to superior advice in order to attain eternal happiness and go back to Godhead. It is significant in this verse that the government and the natural guardian, the father, should educate subordinates and raise them to Krishna consciousness. Devoid of Krishna consciousness, every living being suffers in this cycle of birth and death perpetually. To relieve them from this bondage and enable them to become blissful and happy, Bhakti Yoga should be taught. A foolish civilization neglects to teach people how to rise to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Do you ever think, like, everything you learned when you became a devotee, you should have learned that like in kindergarten? Or at least by the time you're 5, you should have learned it. And when you see our children, they all understand. 5 years old, they understand. Like, what a waste. And then people are 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and they don't understand these things. It's like sad. And they have this whole industry, like self-development, spiritual enlightenment industry, all because nobody got it when they were kids. Right? In traditional culture, you get it from your grandmother. She's your guru. Your mother, your father, your grandmother. Grandfather. I was going to do a video. I'll never do it, but if you want to make a video, you could do it. So it's like you get excerpts from the greatest teachers to, consider the greatest teachers today, the greatest spiritual teachers and inspirational speakers like that. So you have them on stage and they're saying things, super powerful, 10,000 people in the audience. Yeah. And then you slip to a grandmother in a little village somewhere and you ask her a question and she gives the same answer. And you keep doing that. And it's like, hello, it's like, this is not new stuff, Every grandmother in the mountains of, Nepal knows this stuff. How do they know it? They learned it when they were 3 years old from their grandmother. Like, in traditional culture, everybody knows this. It's just, we are so advanced in Western culture, we don't know any of this. That would be a funny video, wouldn't it? I don't be pretty serious, though. But if you want to do it, go ahead. If you like making videos, do a little documentary. Call it Granny Wisdom. The world without Granny Wisdom is not a good world. Hare Krishna. Devoid of Krishna consciousness, every living being suffers in the cycle of birth and death perpetually. To relieve them from this bondage and enable them to become blissful and happy, Bhakti Yoga should be taught. A foolish civilization neglects to teach people how to rise to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Without Krishna consciousness, a person is no better than a hog or dog. Whoa, heavy. I'm going to go out in the street and say that today. I used to, when I was a younger devotee, and I had a little more fanatical blood in me, I would say this in a nice way. I'd say, we're kind of like, look at your life, it's kind of like, it's not really different than the dog life. And all these new devotees, would say, how can you say that? That's so heavy. Then next week, nobody comes to the program next week. And I had this god brother, and he said, if you go through the Bhagavatam, if you want to talk about offensive language, or spiritual abuse, just go through the Bhagavatam. It's a lot of offensive language, and we just came across some here. Actually, sir, you know, according to our religion, your life is pretty much no better than the life of a hog or a dog. So, you think people will like to hear that? So I was in India. Well, I've been in India many times, as we all have, and the culture of India is that the guru is supposed to cut and chop and smash and pulverize and knead you, and you know, you come out the other end hopefully better, you know. So they're like, this is really heavy. What are you doing with your life? You're wasting your life. Working like asses, you're no better than hogs and dogs. And like that, you know. And if you ever hear Indians give lectures, it's like it's almost like, are they like rehearsing for a movie? This is like really dramatic, you know. Because we just give lectures like, yeah, here's the hog or dog. But they wouldn't do that. Hog! Dog! You know, it's very dramatic, you know. So that's like the mood is shake up the audience, because we're all like, yeah, someone set me, he said, we hear the scripture like we hear our alarm clock. You know, some people don't hear their alarm clock. And some people hear the alarm clock and turn it off. And some people hear the alarm clock and just do nothing. He said, that's somehow we hear scripture kind of like that. Either we don't hear it, we turn it off, or we hear it and we don't do anything. So that style of preaching, that's more of the Eastern style, you know, like heavy. If you do that in the West, probably it doesn't go over that well. Not probably, we know it doesn't go over well. So I was in India many times, and when I'd hear one of these lectures, I'd be thinking, that's so heavy, how can you say that? You're like offending the audience. And at the end, the Indians come up and say, oh Maharaj, that was so good. We needed to hear that. We were so attached. Grihastas, you know, we're so attached. We needed it. So they love it, and they expect it. And that's why they go to lecture, to get smashed. And Bhakti Siddhanta said, the words of the Guru are like a knife, and they cut out the disease. And Mahabharata says, the tongue of the Brahmin is like a sword, but his heart is like sugar. And the tongue of a Kshatriya is like sugar, but his heart is like a sword. So that's the nature of the Brahmin. It's all like out of compassion, they're like abusing you, quote unquote. By today's standards, this is kind of abusive, isn't it? Call someone a hog or dog. You call me a hog or dog, I'm taking you to court, I'm suing you. Defamation of character. Right? Hare Krishna. Okay. Oh yeah. The instructions of Ṛṣabhadeva are very essential at the present moment. People are being educated and trained to work very hard for sense gratification, and there is no sublime aim of life. A man travels to earn his livelihood, leaving home early in the morning, catching a local train, and being packed in a compartment. This is India. You know what being packed in. You don't know what being packed in a compartment means till you take a train, a local train in India. Then you know. I was telling the devotees, actually, I like those local trains. It's so packed, you are squished in between people, and you don't have to hold yourself up because other people hold yourself up. There's so many people. So you just sit there. You can't fall over. There's no room. And I actually kind of like it because you probably never had experience of standing up without having to exert any energy, but then you don't have to. It's kind of relaxing. You know? As long as they're using deodorant, it's okay. So this is what Prabhupada is talking about. You know, the train station is crowded, the trains are crowded, the cities are dirty and polluted. It takes to half an hour, whatever, and we all know what Prabhupada's talking about. But crowded trains in India, they're more crowded than trains you've taken. Okay. He has to stand for an hour or two in order to reach the place of business. Then again, he takes a bus to get to the office. At the office, he works hard from 9 to 5. That was then. Now it's more like what, 8 to 8 or something? 8 to 7. I don't know about in your country, but in other countries it's... I have a disciple, she's just got a job for the biggest law firm. I said, how many hours do you work a day? He said, minimum 12. Hare Krishna. It doesn't leave much time for self-realization. If it takes a while to get to work, then you could be at 15 hours, gone from home. Okay. But the pay is very good. Like, really good. So it's like you'll be in the 1%. If you stay in that company, you'll probably be in the 1% richest people in your country. So it's like they can work you 12 hours a day, and they can work you on the days that you're supposed to be off. So, what to do? Then he takes a bus to the office. The office he works from 9 to 5. Then he takes 2 or 3 hours to return home. After eating, he has sex and goes to sleep. Now, if when we decided to turn our back on Krishna and come to the material world, someone would have told us that this is what we're going to be doing, we might have had second thoughts. Right? You're going to be working, you're going to be taking this train. I have this little movie in my head, like you're with Krishna and you're like, I think I need to get out of here, I need some space to breathe, and Krishna's saying, I don't think it's a good idea. And Krishna's, then explaining to you what's going to happen. And then Krishna says, well, if you go down there, you're going to work. And you're saying, what's work? Because you don't know, because you've never seen it. And he has to explain it. I'm like, oh, okay. And Krishna says, but you don't have to work 7 days a week. What's a week? Then he has to explain it. He has to explain everything. You get a day off. And then he says, well, what do you do on your day off? He says, well, they have these big places with grass, and you go and there's a little ball, and on your day off you knock it in a hole. And he's trying to figure, why would you do that? Because it's fun. How is that fun? But nobody told us. So we had to come and find out ourselves. You may say, why didn't Krishna tell us? Because, well, that's a whole philosophical discussion. We may not have been there with Krishna, but anyway, why didn't anybody tell us? Why weren't there some signs, material world this way, these are what happens when you go, spiritual world this way, this is what happens when you go. But, we wanted to go this way, so, if you ever wanted to do something, doesn't matter what anybody tells you, I don't think you should do that, it's not a good idea, The last guy went swimming here, got eaten by a shark, it was like, yeah, whatever. I just want to do it, So, anyway, if we would have known, maybe we would have changed our mind. What do you think?
I don't think so.
Yeah, like that stubborn kid. Yeah, but I have to experience it myself. Okay. And Krishna's like, okay, I already know that's how you're going to think, so I'll create the world in a way that you have to work hard, and then Prabhupada will come along and say, there's a world where you don't have to work hard. And all the hippies are like, yeah, how do I join? Because the whole idea of hippies was we don't want to work. They didn't work. It's hung out in the park all day and smoked pot. I don't know where they got their money. I guess I used to go through the pockets of my father's suits. He had money in his pockets. That's how I got my money. So they went through their father's pockets, got the money, and moved to Haight-Ashbury and just smoked pot all day. Didn't work. Of course, that didn't really work out either. Anyway, but, okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Butterflies like these flowers, right? Don't they? Okay. For all of this hardship, his happiness is only a little sex. Yan maitunadi grihamedhi shukam hitucham. 7945. Ṛṣabhadeva clearly states that human life is not meant for this kind of existence, which is enjoyed by dogs and hogs. You don't deserve, ladies and gentlemen, my dear devotees, nobody deserves this. You deserve better. You're a human being. You could do austerity. You could experience unlimited happiness. You deserve better than working hard like a hog and a little sex at night and sleep. And a few pieces of toast and a cup of tea in the morning. And back on the train. You deserve more than this. That's what Ṛṣabhadeva is saying. You're a human being. You're a human being. You don't have to live like a hog. Why did you choose to live like a hog? Hog can't choose to live like you. You can choose to live like him. That's stupid. Why did you do that? You don't deserve this. That's what he's saying. Isn't it, like, you ever see somebody who's like really wealthy and they're doing something that like poor people do? And you're like, why are you doing that? It's like they get a job at a grocery store because they're bored or some packing things up or whatever. It's like, why are you doing that? There was a sannyasi, and he was preaching in a country that had that jewelry, that stone that comes from resin, that's orange. Amber, yeah. So he had made a connection, so he'd bring it, back to his preaching in the West, and he'd sell it, and he'd make money. And at that time, I was doing something similar to support my family, because I was a bona fide university dropout, so I couldn't, I was unhireable, and I'm not inclined to work for anybody anyway. So we were in India, it was just like, okay, let's buy some stuff in India for like 2 paisa and sell it for $100, because that's kind of how it works. So that was working out. And, but it's just mundane, and it gets old fast, and it's like, why am I doing this? This is like, I should be teaching. But I just, at that point, I had to do it. And then I was talking to Maharaj, and he's saying, yeah, I do it also. And then I get the amber and I sell it here and there. And he said, I don't really know why I do it. I have enough money. I don't need to do it. And I'm thinking, if I could stop doing this, I would stop in a second. And he's a sannyasi and he doesn't have to do it. It's like, why are you doing this? This is like crazy. You don't have to. That's how I didn't tell him that, but that's how I was thinking. It's like, whoa. And so there's a story. One time a devotee was criticizing another devotee, and Prabhupada said, I have to criticize because I'm the guru, and I hate doing it, and you don't have to, and you're doing it. So like, why would you want to do that? You don't have to. So it's like, why would you want to live like a pig or a dog if you're a human? Well, that's where society has come to today. And you may remember that Prabhupada gave a lecture. You know the story? Gave a lecture like, don't live like dogs. And like, what's wrong with living like a dog? I wouldn't mind being a dog. My blessings. Yeah, you know that story? You have my blessings, you can be a dog. So that's how people think. Dog life is good. Run on the beach, everything's great, That's where society's at. Okay. Ṛṣabhadeva clearly states that human life is not meant for this kind of existence, which is enjoyed even by dogs and hogs. Indeed, dogs and hogs do not have to work so hard for sex. So actually, now we understand why we'd want to be like a dog and hog. Their life could be better sometimes. A human being should try to live in a different way and should not try to imitate dogs and hogs. The alternative is mentioned. Human life is meant for tapasya, austerity and penance. By tapasya, one can get out of the material clutches. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness devotional service, his happiness is guaranteed eternally. By taking to Bhakti Yoga devotional service, one's existence is purified. The living entity is seeking happiness life after life, but he can make a solution to all his problems simply by practicing bhakti yoga. Then he immediately becomes eligible to return home back to Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Janma karma chame divyam evam yobeti tattataha takladeham purna janme naiti mameti. So Arjuna, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. I would say this is kind of like, if you wanted to summarize, the message that, the main message that Prabhupada was giving to the world, this verse and purport would have to be part of that. Because this is kind of like, over and over and over, this is the theme. Isn't it? So, that's it. Arhati. You don't deserve to live like a pig. That's it. I'm finished. That's what I wanted to say. Any questions or comments? You deserve better than a pig's life. That's what Ṛṣabhadeva's saying. Yeah, I was in a class, Prabhupada said. He said, so, you get a college degree and you have a diploma. And with this diploma, you go looking for a job. And you go, Master, I have a diploma, hire me. And Prabhupada said, that's like a dog looking for a master. He said, that is not so glorious. Like we think it's glorious. He said, not so glorious. It's a bit of slavery, isn't it? Hare Krishna. Yes?
Is it even possible to be initiated devotee and work for 12 hours, chant 60 rounds, cook prasadam, read shastras, when I count 4 hours and sleeping?
As long as you don't sleep, it's possible. This is the, do you know, I found this purport. I was so happy to find it. Prabhupada says, human beings should not work more than 8 hours a day in the purport. And it's easy to understand why. And I read somewhere that like after 4 or 6 hours, the brain kind of just like runs on 2 cylinders. It's like it doesn't function properly. But you could, you do the 8 hour, okay, even if you sleep 8 hours, it still leaves 8 hours left, which is, enough to have a good morning program and an evening program, isn't it? If you think about it. So that's why Prabhupada was saying that. And from being in India, like when the sun goes down, everyone's asleep in the village, right? And they're all up early in the morning, so their spiritual life is important. And a lot of those shops, like Prabhupada said, his father had a shop, a cloth shop. It opened at noon and closed at 6, and he would do puja all morning. And then he'd come home at 6 and do puja all evening. So that was kind of like the mood. But, the problem we have today, and is so unfortunate, which is why having our own communities and our own economy, if we can pull that off, is so good, is that it costs too much to live. So if you're not willing to live in a 3 square meter box, you're going to have to work a lot to make money. Unless unless you're a brain surgeon or something, or a lawyer who makes $500 an hour. Or you run a very successful business and you've got other people doing it for you. That's for the average person, it's difficult. Then, in many countries in the world, I don't know about here, but when I go to a country and I go, how long do you work? And they go 9 to 5, and I'm like, really? That's all? Because in America, nobody, no one who's making decent money works 9 to 5. And all the IT people, if you're like, this is too many hours, you're like, okay. We've got like 500 people on the boat from India who are happy to work 12 hours a day and get paid for working 8. So, that's what we're dealing with. That's unfortunate. Nandarati has a question today. Okay.
that when you said that we will be like slavery, you know? If we are working so much, he said, anyway we are slavery. So I said, I'm going to say it. So the question is, he thinks that we are anyway slavery in this material world.
Yeah.
Is it true that?
Unless you're a devotee, yeah. Especially true after you get married and have kids. But, you want to hear something interesting? I don't know if this will shake you up or make you faint or make you want to leave devotional service. But the goal for us is to be Krishna's slave. I know slave is a politically charged word, but that's actually the goal. Slave. Want to be slave. So he's right. And Prabhupada, in one morning walk, he said, everyone is controlled, even the devotees. It's just a question of what they're controlled by. You want to be a slave of love? Just who do you love? But you'll be a slave of love no matter who you love. But if you love Guru and Krishna, it's divine slavery. So it's nice. Aren't there songs like that? I'm a slave of love. Slave of love. Doo-doo, doo-doo. There must be a million songs like that. Right? So yeah, it's true. We will be controlled. So choose your poison.
He knows the song. He said that.
He sings it every day. He wrote the song. Ṛṣabhadeva. It's created. Huh? Actually, he's devotee, she said. I didn't know. My theory is, in every language, there's a song called "I'm a Slave of Love." That's my theory. You probably Google it and you'll find lots of different songs, I would imagine. Oh. So it's a really beautiful thought that I'm controlled. It's just who I'm going to be controlled by the internal potency or the external potency. I'm going to take the elevator up or down, but I'll be in an elevator. Or delevator, going down. Yes?
So you were saying Prabhupada would say, don't work more than 8 hours. On some festivals when you're serving, it's much more than 8 hours.
Yeah, Prabhupada would say for devotees, 24 hours a day, engaged in devotional service. He's talking about working for livelihood. But festivals are an exception. But generally, we don't want our work to interfere with our sadhana. So we want to, it's like if you have two choices, you could make a lot of money working 12 hours or less money working 8 hours. You should try to figure out how to work on the amount of money you can get in 8 hours of work. That would be a better choice for your spiritual life. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to work 12 because you need that amount of money. But, your lifestyle choices, of course, affect how much money you need. So, what to do? Yes.
How should devotee protect himself from the influence of bad association on the work? If he is 8 hours, 1/3 of his life, he's there.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Since we're in the vaccination controversial mode, there are good vaccinations. And it's called the Mahamantra. That's the best vaccination. Because Prabhupada would sometimes use that analogy that the modes of nature are like a virus or like a contagious disease. And you have to get your vaccination. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, when you're in a toxic situation in the workplace, first principle is you better have good sadhana, because if you don't, no defenses. The second thing I would try to do is just treat everyone as a spiritual being. And try to see Krishna in their heart and try to somehow or other see the philosophy You know, like when I would do book distribution, as I remember back in the day, we would see how the modes of nature were working. It was very clear. Sometimes really funny. You go to one place and everyone would say no. You go across the street and everybody would say yes. It was like they were, you know, the store was different. It attracted different people. Or sometimes we would even do cars when they would stop at the red lights, and we would go to the cars. And the cars going this way would all give donations, and the cars going that way wouldn't, because they're coming from a different place. So, or we'd say, "Excuse me, sir," and they'd get really angry. And we would just see like these modes acting, you know, and we'd think, and people say, "How do you deal with angry people?" I say, I don't see him as angry, I just see the modes of nature are making him angry. So then I thought, you know, like, if you see everything philosophically, like wherever you are, it kind of protects you. You know, so if you have a philosophical bent on, okay, I'm at work, everyone's a spiritual being, you know, they're an illusion, they think they're the body, they're working, they think money's going to make them happy position. Not that I'm feeling superior, but I'm just understanding, and they're, you know, impelled to work hard, and this is what society has told them. So, you know, you can see things philosophically, and you can practice being blissful, peaceful, and but I think there's a limit to that, because everybody's different, and some people can tolerate it more. And, you know, unfortunately, we can't always control that. We can control how we deal with it, but sometimes even that is difficult, unfortunately. And so, on your day off, chant 64 rounds just to decompress. That's what I would do. Like when I was Sankirtan back in the day as a brahmachari, 6 days a week we would go out. On the 7th day, since God rested, we also followed his example, and we did a certain kind of rest. It's like lay your sleeping bag on the floor, put in earplugs, no alarms, and sleep as long as you can, because you're so exhausted from not sleeping enough during the week. So we'd do that, and the rest of the day we'd read Bhagavatam. That was our day off. I mean, obviously we'd take a little prasadam, but in terms of actions, it was just sleep and read Bhagavatam, so that we could, you know, rejuvenate ourselves so we could go out. So, you know, your weekends, you're not working, so that's also a strategy, you know. Say, like, I didn't get enough time for hearing and chanting, oh, well, do it on the weekend, you know, rejuvenate. So, but my first advice would be, you know, especially for younger people, like you're making a decision on a profession, you know, realize what the environment of that profession is going to be, because you're going to be in it, and maybe you don't want to be in that. Maybe it's going to be too heavy. If you're like really Brahminical and really honest, probably being a lawyer may not be like the best job for you. I mean, maybe there are places for honest people to be lawyers where you don't have to defend people that are guilty, that you know are guilty, but, you know, pay is good, so, you know, they're paying me to defend them, so I do it. I don't know so much about law, although Prabhupada would joke, he says, lawyer means liar. And then Prabhupada told a joke. He said, if you're going to get a heart transplant, who should you get it from? He said, you should get it from a lawyer, because his heart has never been used. So, I think it's just, you know, if you think, I want to go in this field, you know, it's like, it's really good to have a reality check. Like, I want to be an actress in Hollywood. Well, just have a reality check, what it's like. I want to be a model. Have a reality, well, this is going to be your life. This is what goes on in that world. You know, talk to people. Maybe it's your world, maybe it's okay. Maybe you like it, you're inspired. But just know, because you may realize it's not my world. So, I think that's important. One of the things that devotees who are very sadhana-oriented are very aware of, they're aware of how all their choices materially are going to affect the time and the consciousness they have for sadhana. Because if I make certain choices, it's going to minimize my time for sadhana. Because I have to work harder. Because I just bought the house. Now I don't have a choice. I'm not renting. I can't downgrade so easily. If I'm renting, I'll just rent a cheaper place. Buy a van, live in a van, rent free, whatever, you know. I could downgrade as much as I want. You know, get a room in Mayapur, 100 euros a month. But once I buy the house and the new car, then okay. So it's just good to know, to be aware that you don't want to do anything that would compromise your sadhana. And a lot of times we make choices of what we want, but we don't realize it's going to compromise our sadhana, and then we realize it when it's finally compromised. It's like, oh, not good. So it's good to be aware of that. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm guilty of that. I made choices which did not take into consideration the effects it would have on my spiritual life. And so I'm telling you this based on doing it the wrong way. And then coming around and doing it the right way. And realizing every choice we make has some effect. We want to do this, but we don't have the money, so we have to get it. So what does that mean? Maybe that means I got to deliver papers at 4 a.m. and then get a second job at 7 a.m. and a third job at 7 p.m. It's like probably not so good for sadhana, right? Sometimes I wish I was just a Vaishya. I could manifest unlimited wealth and just chant Hare Krishna all the time. Yeah. But not everybody's like that. So yeah, good sadhana, but I think the second answer is better. Because if you do the second thing, you don't have to worry about such good sadhana because you're not going to an environment that's so difficult to deal with or not dealing with it. You're choosing the environment. And you know, a lot of times because of our psychophysical nature, even though we're in an environment that's not like certified KC on a scale of 1 to 10 at 10, but it's something you like to do, so it doesn't drain you. And you're with people similar to you, so you kind of relate to them, and you know, like if you're a psychologist or a professor and you're in academia, you know, so you have something, you know, more maybe relatable and more inclined with your nature, so it's not draining. But a lot of people, including Hare Krishna devotees, if they're working at something they don't like, at the end of the day, they are drained. And what do drained people do at the end of the day? They get their phone and they scroll for hours because they're vegetables. They can't do anything. And they want some relief. And they get relief by doing nothing. Isn't it? You ever been drained and it's like you don't want to do anything? You just want to sit and be entertained? Yeah, so that's not good. So that could be part of being in a very toxic environment or being in a profession that is not at all your nature. So, you know, I think we need to be careful of that also. Because the typical Asian parent will just encourage their children to work in a field where it has the best material stability and the best options. Of course, stability now. With AI, you know, what does that mean? The AI, you know, you developed an AI, and now you're the programmer, you get an AI, and now the AI is programming. So now what do? You just created someone who took your job. Yeah. But, so they're saying this is good because materially you'll be secure, but not considering your nature and how that could just drain you. So, not that every programmer is drained, but some are. Hare Krishna. You know what I think? Prasadam. You did it. Prasadam is the best way to make money. I've done prasadam distribution. We did it in rest areas on highways. We got legal rights to do it as a religious group because it's prasadam. You know. So we were like Doing prasadam like 20, during Christmas we had 24 hours a day we had tables. Because cars were coming. We were selling prasadam 24 hours a day. That was ecstatic, even though it was a burnout. But because it was prasadam, nobody burned out. Everybody was happy. The only people who burned out who are the ones who ate it, because there was so much sugar and oil in it, they all fell asleep. But other than that, so it was like I loved it. It was like prasadam, like I could do that all day and not burn out. So, you know, if there's some ecstatic preaching and you're doing it, you know, but you're inspired, it's different. Because you just get up in the morning, Hare Krishna, because you're so inspired, right? But if you're just like coding all day and you don't like it in the morning, it's like, God, I can't work today. You know, it's like, you want to live a life like that? Maybe you do. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying that it can be draining if you don't. So you have to be careful that you get enough Shakti. And nowadays you can work at home. That's good, right? We had a workshop on a weekday and all these people came, you know, during the day. It was like, wow, I guess you called in sick of Maya, right? So sometimes when you get sick of Maya, you make career choices. Sometimes, if you can. But you know, Prabhupada preached more about sadhana. Just be strong and do something to maintain yourself, but don't give up your sadhana. Otherwise, you become like a dog or a hog. Congratulations. You just blew it. You blew the human form of life. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Prashad. I cooked prashad.
Oh, okay. Yesterday, for those of you who are watching, because yesterday was... no, but this is good. We didn't talk about... I completely neglected to talk about how austerities bring happiness. I mean, that's like a major part of this verse. Tipo devyam putraka yena sattvam asmin brahmashokam tonantam. Austerity brings happiness, sense gratification brings misery. So yesterday we got to do austerity by eating raw buckwheat. And you should have seen how happy the devotees were doing that austerity, because austerity makes you happy. Right.
Everybody is so happy when Jagannath was happy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were like, wow. Nandarani's like really become our guru and said, today's Ekadasi, you're going to do austerity by eating raw buckwheat. We did it. It was so blissful. So austerity is blissful. That's the point. It's not blissful while you do it, it's blissful after. While you're doing it, it's like, this is a unique experience. I've never eaten raw buckwheat before. And then I said, well, it's Ekadasi, so austerity. You know, it's my little joke if I don't like prasadam. And they say, you know, we have this saying, austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. So if the prasadam's not good, they say, how do you like it? I just say, well, austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins, which means this is austere eating this. Yeah. So I try to make it positive. But whenever, you know, whenever there's austerity, the conditioned side of us is like, oh, that's bad, you know, I need sense gratification is good, austerity is bad. But as devotees, you know, we should think, or we can think, austerity is good, I'll get purified, you know. So like, my biggest austerity is flying on airplanes, squashed in like a sardine, you know, and somehow Krishna always arranges that the persons on my side take up 1.5 seats. So I'm like, you know, I'm like in the middle. It's like, why did you give me a seat in the middle? So we booked it too late, you know, and it was cheaper. So I'm like this. And I'm like, could you get your shoulders over there? And I'm looking, it's like, no, they can't, because they're like this way.
I'm going in November in England. With tsunami.
Anyway,
she's skinny.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, why did this guy buy 2 seats? You know, it's not fair. So then I think, you know, austerity is always good. You know, inconvenience, it's always good because it just helps us become more tolerant and like that. So don't run away from austerity when it runs towards you. You know, if it can help you, then just do it. Why not? I have a rating system for prasadam. Austerity is the wealth of the Brahmins. That means it's really bad. Interesting means I tolerate it. Healthy means, yeah, you can eat it, but I wouldn't make it again. Okay means it was okay, but don't cook it again. Good means, yeah, you can make it again. And wow means wow. And wow means you are above average cook. That's my rating system. And as a humble devotee, we shouldn't say anything. We should just eat it and be grateful, right? Whatever, it's Krishna's mercy, because it's offensive to evaluate it, right? Now then I thought, but they'll make me the same thing that I don't like tomorrow, and then when I eat 1 teaspoon of it, and there's a whole bowl left, and they're like, you didn't like it? Why didn't you tell me? Well, I'm trying to be humble. I just take whatever Krishna gives me. And now they're crying, oh, you're not eating what I'm cooking. So I made a decision that I would, here's my rating chart, and what?
We have still this green stool.
Of course. Well, that's the other rating system. You don't have to ask how you like it, just ask how much is left over. You know, look at my bowl. How did you like it? Well, look at my bowl. It looks about as full as when I started eating it. You can tell how I liked it, you know. I didn't ask for seconds. And the bowl is still full. Yeah, right. Bowl, yeah. So, that's the real rating system, right? Okay, so I guess we don't know this morning if we're going to do austerity or not. We will.
I cooked this now.
All right. Whoa, okay. Breakfast is actually cooked. All right. You know, but with oats, you don't have to cook. You can just soak in some yogurt and like whatever. It's like muesli, right? Okay. Whatever Krishna sends, it's all His mercy. Sometimes He sends a palace. Sometimes you sleep in a hut. Sometimes He sends opulent prasadam. Sometimes He sends uncooked buckwheat. You just don't know. So you just accept it, right? And that way, see, the thing is, if you can accept the bad, you can accept the good without being affected by it. So sometimes He puts me in a palace, and sometimes I sleep under a tree. So if you can accept sleeping under a tree, then you don't get affected sleeping in the palace. That's the idea. Whatever He sends, accept it. Humbly.
If you sleep under the tree and you don't like it, there is no change.
Just have to accept it. It's Krishna's mercy. At least there's a tree. I once went to someone's house and they gave me like a wooden plank to sleep on. With like a little sheet over it. It's like, okay, whatever. It's what you get. Take it. Krishna's mercy. Of course, I didn't sleep all night, so that was like not so good for functioning the next day. But sometimes, you know, it was like, what can you do? They just give it to you, and they go, here's your room, and then they go, and you don't even know where they are. And it's like, oh, okay, this is, you know, I used to do this as a brahmachari. Let's try it now. You know, 40 years later, it doesn't work as well. You know. But anyway, that's part of, you know, austerity. Involuntary austerity. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Thai Go Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.